a case study on indigenous peoples' culture and history. There are about 350 million indigenous people living in over 70 countries across 6 continents, accounting for approximately 5% of the total world population, who represent more than 5,000 languages and cultures, according to United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization or the UNESCO 2015. Indigenous people include Native Americans, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples in Australia, the Maori peoples of New Zealand, the Sami of Northern Europe, indigenous minorities in Africa, as well as various tribal people throughout Asia, according to Dyson and Underwood in 2006. The digital world that is amplified with text, graphics, audios, and video files are believed to suit well indigenous people's strength in arts, music, and oral forms, passing on knowledge, according to Dyson in 2003 and Dyson and Underwood in 2006. The internet accommodates many viewpoints and minority groups, such as indigenous people, to have knowledge placed back in their hand, rather than being interpreted through outsiders, according to Levy in 1997. The increasing use of internet application and communication such as bulletin boards and social media by indigenous people has a potential impact on their lives, according to ICK Barnes in 2002. On the other hand, the adverse effect of ICTs on indigenous people and their communities have also been reported. Such issues are ongoing concern of the digital divide of indigenous communities, which are caused by the internet access, isolation, and inadequate telecommunication infrastructure, as well as low computer skills, information literate, and language literate, according to Bairn 2003 and Dyson in 2004. In addition, researchers have pointed out that indigenous people are reluctant to use the internet because they felt modern technology introduces Western values and creates constraint to traditional culture, according to Renee at 2011. A review of indigenous people and ICTs situated in the context of information research on marginalized group in library and information science timely and important.
This study focuses on how the indigenous people preserve their culture and their history. All the indigenous people preserve their culture very well so that their next generation will still see their different culture. And also the person who does not have the bloodline of the indigenous people will know what their cultures are. There are some students and researchers who study the different types of culture and history of the indigenous people. Some of the indigenous people had forgotten about their cultures because of the modern technologies. This case study focuses on how the Bajau tribe. The Bajau tribe were located at Zamboanga City. The Bajau, like many of the Philippines indigenous peoples, are a neglected tribe, commonly referred to as sea gypsies, because they live and fish in coastal areas. The Bajau live in extreme poverty, often beyond the reach of state assistance due to their nomadic existence. The result is that many of them join the ranks of beggars in the Philippines, urban centers, or dive for the coins thrown by boat passengers. Essentially, culture refers to a people's way of life, their ideas, values, customs, and social behavior. Culture includes things like the way we do weddings and funerals, the food we like to eat, the way we dress, and the music we like. Culture is passed down from generation to generation, and while cultural practices and beliefs change and evolve, many of the basic aspects remain the same. So even though we may dress differently from our grandparents and hold different religious or political beliefs, it's likely there are elements of the way you live that can be traced back to them. These cultural elements have a strong influence on who we are, how we think about the world, and how we operate in society. For some people, the idea that everyone has culture could be new. This is particularly true for people who are part of the mainstream society. In this case, Trying to identify your culture may be challenging at first because it's so natural and normal that it's virtually invisible to us. Sometimes it becomes clearer when you think about your culture in light of someone else. For example, how the holidays you celebrate, the types of food you eat, the clothing you wear, and the way you approach events such as birth, death, and marriages are similar to or different from another culture. Many indigenous people in Australia have a unique view of the world that's distinct from the mainstream. Land, family, law, ceremony, and language are five key interconnected elements of indigenous culture. For example, families are connected to the land through the kinship system. This connection to the land comes with specific roles and responsibilities which are enshrined in the law and observed through ceremony. In this way, the five elements combine to create a way of seeing and being the world that's distinctly indigenous. Understanding how intricately interconnected these elements are helps us understand the damage done when colonization occurred. When people are disconnected from culture, this has a deep impact on their sense of identity and belonging, which gives meaning and purpose to people's lives. Understanding this helps us find appropriate ways to respond to the pain caused by colonization.
Conclusion. The Bajau of the sea, but we are so few now. From a Bajau leader field interview in Sanga Sanga. The Bajau of the Sulu archipelago represent a subculture of a greater nomadic boat culture found throughout Southeast Asia. There are the most sea-oriented people of a larger Sama-speaking group. In the Philippines, outsiders refer from this group commonly apply the name Bajau or Bajau. They have also been called by many other names by people within Sulu area as Orang Laot, Torigin, Luwagan or Luan, Palakwa, Palau, Lutaw, Badjo, and so forth. However, the Bajau identify them as Sama Dilaot, which means sea group of people. In this paper, the term Bajau and Sama Dilaot are preferred name for this group of people. The original Bajaus are the first resident of the communities formed after series of sedentarization process. They are the ones who experienced boat dwelling tradition and are the experts of boat building and fishing. The real Bajau is a Dilaot, someone who consider him or herself as a native of the sea. That's all.